What do you think are the key technologies we can leverage in order to take bias out of AI?
I think bias is something that comes up in every conversation in the context of AI. Let me just start out with and say that it is not true that bias is a problem in every AI solution. It is only relevant and true when you're using human data. And the other myth that I really want to dispel is that it is impossible to eliminate all bias. It is impossible to have a completely fair algorithm because that just is never going to happen. So from a business perspective, it is really about saying what level of bias is acceptable for a given scenario, right? Depending on the problem you're trying to solve. I'll give you two examples. One from a healthcare perspective, right? Bias in healthcare, where you are looking at patient data and making a diagnosis. If bias exists, it's a terrible thing, and it can result in bad situations, right? So there, the metrics of measuring bias should be much higher thresholds, right? But if you are using AI to predict a X-ray machine failure by using the machine data, bias doesn't really come into play because it is about just looking at the machine's metrics and trying to figure out is this machine going to fail. So it really depends on the use case, and it also then depends on the thresholds. You hear a lot about facial recognition, for example, right? And how biased and how much of a problem it can cause when law enforcement uses facial recognition to tag criminals, for example. That's a very well-known case, and of course it's terrible if you are tagging criminals and it's not an unbiased algorithm, or it's not been really trained on a diverse data set. But there is facial recognition algorithms being used, Tracy, today at traffic lights to identify kidnapping victims or human trafficking victims, right? Now, in that case scenario, the question is not really about whether this should be completely unbiased, but trying to measure it across human methodology. Meaning, if a facial recognition technology is helping you rescue 30% more victims than you would by just using human eyesight, if it is rescuing even 30% more, even though it is biased, I think that's a decision that needs to be made.